Welcome to that moment with Daymond John. Man, I could run across all this man's accolades, and I will. I don't want you to feel like you don't know who I'm talking to, but let me share with you one thing, and this is not his career. You're 63 and you compete currently
Yeah, I
in,
compete as a
explain to
natural
me, natural
bodybuilder.
bodybuilding?
Kind of got into the sport when I was in my late 30s, returned to it at age 57. So now I compete as a member of the OCB Federation, as well as DFAC and a couple of USBF. So there's a couple of natural bodybuilding federations. I'm a member of 3 different ones. I've earned my pro card in 2 as a master's competitor. And master just means you compete at age 40 and above. So I've earned master's pro cards as a 50 plus competitor, and I'm now 63. So yeah, I've been bodybuilding as my chosen sport pretty much for the last uh,
Uh,
25 years or so.
Yeah, okay, you got into in your late 30s. We're gonna get back to that because I'm told that you lose, I don't know, 3 to 5% or something like that of muscle a year. I feel like I'm losing 90% a year. So I'm sure there's a lot of people and natural bodybuilding and with me being health and fitness
Yeah.
and all that type of stuff is something I want to concentrate on and keep concentrating on. I think we're gonna have a lot to speak about there. But let's talk about your actual profession that you get paid for and people seek your guidance around the world. It is basically, let's break it down. Award-winning multimedia journalist, senior vice president, executive editor of Black Enterprise, Alfred Edmond Jr., known widely for your expertise on business, economic trends, entrepreneurship, personal finance, leadership. You are a speaker. You speak on global stages. You are somebody that I'm constantly like, man, we got to slow down and we got to get some time to talk to Albert to pick his brain because you're looking under the hoods of every single car in the world, meaning from a business perspective, you're seeing what's working, what's not working, and people are telling you their problems, and you're extracting as well this type of information on a regular basis. So, um, you know, you also let me look at it here. I'm kind of reading stuff, but I know you, so sometimes I don't want to like to read the stuff, but you also co-produce and host Black Enterprise interview series Beyond the Hype and Your Money, Your Life, while co-hosting or with co-host B, Lifted Up, a nationally syndicated faith-based radio program focused on encouraging listeners to commit to smart financial choices and the creation of generational wealth. And in addition, you serve as a member of Pharrell Williams' Black Ambition nonprofit initiative to support funding of ideas and companies led by Black
So,
and
bro, it's
Hispanic
always a joy. Like I
entrepreneurs.
said,
All
we
right,
don't.
man. Well,
We're
thank you for being
always
here,
so
brother.
busy running. We don't get to talk as much as we like. But whenever we do, we have a good time. So this is good to see you, man.
It is great to see you.
All
Al,
right.
I'm gonna come out hot right now. Why am I really one of the only publicly celebrated African Americans on TV that don't come from music, sports, or television? When you interview people like this every single day, there are people listening to us right now who are not African American, who know a massive amount of African American Latinos who are very prosperous. They're their partners. There are people here who, and listen, nothing against any young man or woman who have made it to the top of sports, music, politics. No matter whether you agree or disagree about any of those things, it is very hard because let me tell you something. I get people pitch me all the time. Hey, David, I got an idea.
Right.
Oh, I got a company. And that's one thing to have a company. And when they pitch me, it is an honor. What are they pitching me for? They want to feed their families and to take anything you have and say, I
Right.
want to come up with this concept. It takes real work. I feel bad for the singers because everybody thinks they can sing. And you don't need anything besides a voice, which everybody has, to be like, check this out. you know, oh, we're moving on up. And so my friends, I see them who are celebrities. I get stopped 20 times a day. They get stopped 200 times a day because my mama told me I'm beautiful. I can sing, I can dance. But, Al, why is that? Why are we not celebrating amongst ourselves people who came up like you, me, um, Kathy Hughes, Byron Allen, who was killing them right now, Percy Sutton. Why do we not celebrate these
You
people
know,
publicly
I mean, that's
as much as they
like
should
you
be?
said, you're starting in hot. That is a big reason why Black Enterprise and publications like Essence and other Black home media platforms exist. And we're talking about going back through the whole history of the Black press, going back to Ida B. Wells and Frederick Douglass. But we speak in current terms.
Yeah.
And I made this statement multiple times since we started the Black Enterprises Black Men Excel Summit, which is the only national event that celebrates Black men just for being Black men, not because we can carry a ball, not because we can rap some lyrics
Right.
or act in a movie. But
hmm
I said this. I said, when you think of Black men in mainstream media, we have to fall in one of 5 categories. We're either perpetrator, victim, athlete, entertainer, or Barack Obama. Meaning,
hmm
if we don't fall in one of those 5 buckets, we're practically invisible.
Yeah, right.
And you're right. I mean, let's face it, Daymond. Before
Right.
Shark Tank, mainstream media really didn't get you. I mean, you're probably the most visible Black man on television now. But before Shark Tank, you ask the average American who's Daymond John,
Yeah.
if you're not from,
Nope.
unless you're from the hip hop community or you're Black.
No, nobody knew.
And that, as you're pointing out, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean Black athletes and entertainers are important, but it's about the context. White athletes and entertainers are important too, but we also see, white people doing everything from business to law. People can name the CEOs of major companies, the white CEOs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
Yes.
reason why Black enterprise exists, the reason why Black media exists, and by the way, for a long time, the only mainstream media outlet that showcased the accomplishments of Black men who weren't athletes or entertainers was Black Enterprise, because obviously Essence is a Black women's magazine. And so I've always taken
Correct.
very seriously the idea
Yes.
that we should celebrate Black athletes and entertainers. We should. But that can't be the only narrative. And of course, when I got to Black Enterprise now 36 plus years ago, and by the way, my intention was not to be at Black Enterprise this long. I thought it was going to be like 2 to 4 years. I wanted to get to GQ or Esquire. That's where I was going out.
Right.
Before Black Enterprise was a magazine called Modern Black Men.
Right. Okay.
Again, another magazine that celebrated Black men, but it was a fashion lifestyle magazine. But that common thread between even then and now was this idea that there were stories that needed to be told. There were people that needed to be. You and I both know. We know guys we grew up with that were just as smart, just as talented, just as interesting as we are. Smarter,
Yeah.
right, and who just
Smarter.
They weren't dribbling
Yeah.
basketballs. They weren't rapping lyrics. They weren't, acting. You know what I'm saying? Those things that, and if we don't showcase people like you, people like, like you said, not just the men, Kathy Hughes, you mentioned, then you will have a generation of young people that don't even know that that's a possible path for them. And so a big reason why the work we do at Black Enterprise is so important, and why I am blessed to have been there so long, is that I can continue to do that work on platforms like my series of Black Enterprise Beyond the Hype.
Yeah, and let me qualify some of these thoughts that I have. I mean, there's a many social issues and all that stuff, and that's not my position or your position at this moment to get into those, because we know they exist. Okay, no problem. Well, I don't say no problem. Problem, but we know they exist. Okay. I happen to be on ABC in Middle America. There's a lot of people going to be listening to my podcast that are not traditionally Black, but I often, they don't want to ask questions because they don't want to sound racist, stupid, or ignorant, but they just don't know. And the same thing with African Americans. We often want to assume, but everybody I've found, we have a lot of common denominators. Um, how do the people here who are listening, who really do have a love and or whether, they have really good friends, they have business partners and various other things, how do they get their partners who happen to be of color? That wasn't the primary reason they probably work with them. They probably work with them because they are of character. How do we get them to, get their partners to be more of the front runners of the business and speak about it, because I want to really qualify some things here. First of all, we have excelled in this country primarily a lot of times in the front of the camera. We have excelled due to sports and music, right? We've done a lot in fashion, science, and various other things, but that wasn't in front of the camera, and it was easy for somebody else just to say, well, this is something that's coming out of our company corporation. So if you look at the magazines and or the things that sell people, what sells books and or programming or whatever intellectual properties that people could recognize. So will you necessarily see a Daymond John on a Vibe or Sports Illustrated? You better not see me on Sports Illustrated, the cover, right? I don't know who, if you're a sports fan, you're not going to pick up that book, right? So you're going to then celebrate, obviously, Michael Jordan, whatever the case is, and Vibe or Rolling Stones. You're going to celebrate Beyonce, the most Grammy Award winning artist. Now, is there an angle though that we can hook the kids, because kids only want to emulate what they see the most, and often when we grow up in our communities, white, black, or indifferent, if you see at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you see the drug dealers the most with the cars. Well, sooner or later you're going to want to emulate them, because you don't see anybody else, because the heroes like Alfred and me and the ones who are watching, they're going to work. You don't see them because they're at work putting in the work. Is there a way for Beyonce to say, or magazines or books such as other ones that are entertainment based, because you already do this, to say Beyonce is going to be on the cover, but you know what? On the inside is going to be Beyonce's team,
Yeah,
her
yeah.
lawyer, her agent, her deal maker, her whatever the
There's
case
absolutely an
is.
angle. That's
You
been
know what
Black
I'm
Enterprise's
saying? Like,
approach. Here's
is
the
there an
beauty
angle
of what
there?
I discovered at Black Enterprise. Like I said, I didn't think of myself as a business
Right,
journalist before I got there. But when I got there, I was like, wait, everything is business. If you're into fashion, there's a business story. If you're into sports, there's a business story. Certainly, if you're
right,
into movies or television, that is a huge business story. I mean, you know that you're better than anybody else now. So what we figured out was we could still do stories on black celebrities, if you will. You know, LeBron James has been on the cover of Black Enterprise. Will Smith has been on the cover of Black Enterprise.
right,
But our thing was, for it to have credibility with our
right.
audience, we needed to tell the business story. How does the industry work? Like you said, who are the people on their team? When Will Smith was on the cover, he was on the cover with Jay Lasseter. You know, again, so it was like what our audience wants
Ah, there
to
you
know
go.
more than just what celebrities are doing or what famous people are doing is how did they do it? How did they get there? What does it mean to be a star on Shark Tank? What does it mean to be a star in the NBA? Beyond what I can see on television, who won and lost the game.
Hmm.
So once I understood and I got to understanding my first year of Black Enterprise, that if you can find the business story, you can write about anybody. You can interview anybody. A great example in the current case, at our Women of Power Summit, which is our big leadership event for Black women that we just did in Las Vegas, we had Issa Rae there. So we had a Q&A with Issa Rae, but it wasn't just about, oh, what is it like to have a hit series on TV?
Hmm.
It was, okay, tell us about your journey. How did you build your team? How did you negotiate your deals? How did that work? And then we did a digital package on her, and we showcased her team. Because, yes, there's the person who's in front of the camera, but then there's these other people, great careers that Black people aren't normally exposed to, that makes the thing in front of the camera or on the court happen. So that's what we learned. We were like, the best thing that Black Enterprise can do, even when we
Yeah.
do an athlete or entertainer, is to talk about the business, because it's all business. Everything is business. Well, I have a thing. I follow the money. Whether I'm looking at a small company or I'm looking at a large industry, I want to know how the money
Right.
flows, because that's where the stories are.
I'm gonna hop and switch gears for a second, but the takeaway from there is, I think that what I always tell, and who all the parents right now listening, I always say, tell your children, for every one LeBron, there's 10 people behind him or her making money. And also, in school, listen, I love my firemen, my firefighters, my police officers, and all that's good. But, sometimes, it's scary as a child of color to see an officer come into the school because somehow you believe he's not there or she's not there for the right reason, because you've been traumatized from what you've
Yes.
seen as what we think are two different Americas. But a banker is a banker, and a banker, is making a lot of money, and a banker's dealing with numbers, and a banker's right there in your community, right? So start to highlight some more of the business people, or even the young man or woman who owns the corner store, the sneaker store, right? If your kids are hot on sneakers, and all of a sudden you bring in somebody who owns a hip sneaker store in the neighborhood, to
But
do that. So I think that's a lot of
the
good
two most
takeaways
important
that we
things
can
that we
have.
can
So
do, and is
I
what
want to
Black
hop into
Enterprise is
yeah,
about.
yeah, go ahead.
But when you talk about parents, it's about one exposure and how to. And here's the deal: unlike, I mean, I'm much older than you are. Unlike when I was a kid, most of the jobs that you could aspire to be as a kid were the things you could see. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a construction worker. I want to be.
Yep,
Now, all the best jobs
sanitation
are not
worker,
visible
city worker, or
jobs.
whatever. Yeah,
Some of them don't even exist yet. And so I'm a big believer that one of the
that's
most
true.
important things that Black Enterprise has done, Black media has done, and that we all can do is not just to tell our kids what they can be, but to show them. I mean, I just in Chicago for NASCAR streetcar weekend, which is at the first NASCAR streetcar. And one of the things we did, we brought my nephew to see all the different jobs there are, pit crew, engineer, mechanics that make NASCAR work. But it's not something you're going to see just by watching a race on television.
Well, to be very honest, you're right, and that's a good point because I don't care who you are when you're out there because you know what, we've already seen that the TikTok, China's version of TikTok, makes kids want to be scientists and astronauts, and our version is
Right.
turning our culture into the world of we all want to be dancers and singers. And I think that when any parent right now is out there, with their children at any event,
Yes.
they should be starting to point out the sidelines, right? Because a guy put out a great movie. It was called "The Kid Stays in the Picture." His name was he was the
Okay.
big
Okay.
producer who did Robert Evans. So anybody who go check this out, it's a great documentary. The kid stays in the picture, and Robert Evans said, he was a sexy dude. He was selling back in the 50s or something, or maybe 60s. He would end up
Oh, okay.
producing all of the Smokey and the Bandits, Car Wash, all these hits. He did all these hits. But what he said was he was a sexy guy. He was selling clothes. Then he was out in Palm Spring. He was in the pool, and some woman was like, "Oh, you're beautiful. You should be an actor." And he's all right, fine, whatever. He goes in and he does this little role for a second. He said he was a sucky actor. He says, and the director looks at him and he says, "Do the role," and he does a role, and the director's like, "Yeah, I don't know, cut. I don't know." I don't know. And the director's kind of like, whatever. And he's like, oh man, the director, and all the actors and actresses. And he said, some guy came out, he don't know who the guy was. He was like, let me see it again. Do it again. And then he said, the kid stays in the
Wow.
picture and just walks
Oof.
off. And he was like, who the fuck was that?
Ah,
That was the executive producer.
right.
That
Exactly.
was that was somebody that
Exactly.
nobody saw.
Yes.
That was the dude who made the call. And so I think that a lot of times you're seeing, like if you go to New York and you want to put in any installation or do any kind of building or any stuff around there, you better talk to the art department. You better talk to the art, and as you know, Alfred, you better talk. There are certain people. I don't care what you want to do. You can talk to anybody all you want,
Right.
but the people
Right.
that make
And
the
that's a
decisions, you
big
don't
part of
see
the
them.
Black Enterprise mission is to identify people doing the jobs that you don't see, show them, let them tell how they got that job and what they have to do to get it. And invariably, and again, I've been at Black Enterprise a long time. I tell you, Daymond, every day somebody will come up to me and say, I'm doing what I do now because of something I read at Black Enterprise or a person that I read about or something you exposed me to at the Entrepreneurs Conference or whatever, that our ability to show people, one, it shows that it's possible because that's the first thing you got to believe that it's possible. And then two, you realize it's not really rocket science. Now that I know what they do, I know what training and skills I need to have. I can see how this matches my
Yeah,
interests. It becomes demystified, and then you see people being gravitating toward. And that's whether somebody wants to work on Wall Street or wants to work in music or wants
yeah,
to work in engineering.
that's right. Tell you, yeah, have your
Yes,
kid pull back the curtain on all the Wizard of Oz's, right? Because you may not want to be a doctor, but you be a anesthesiologist, get a whole lot of money, right? Or You may not want to go to full-time law school, but you like entertainment, man. Deal making, entertainment attorneys who don't have to be as
No, when you
they
talk
don't
again,
the
you talk
courses aren't as
about
much. They're making a
that's fine.
lot
The
of money.
executives, the young black executives, who this brother named Eric Riley. I first
Yeah.
met him a few years ago after he got finished college. He was working on Wall Street, like but it was transferable to this other career. Yes, yes, and so I think to the degree that
All
we do
transferable
that,
skills.
that's what Black Enterprise's mission is. Again, I'm a big fan of Shark Tank because as someone who's been judging business plan competitions for over 25 years,
Yeah.
I, I just when you see the people who come on that show, it's an education for everybody else that thinks they want to start a business. It's an education on valuation. It's an education on how do you pitch investors. It's an education on how people can even determine whether they should be pitching an investor or not. But it goes back to if you can show people as opposed to telling people, then you already know from the now 25 years or 20 years you guys have been doing Shark Tank. We'll be there. But for every person who shows
15, but
on
we'll
that
be
show,
there in a minute. Yeah.
there's probably 100 other people who made better decisions about what to do with their business or learn, maybe I shouldn't be in business. Maybe entrepreneurship isn't cut out for me. But it's the exposure that helps elevate and open up opportunities for other people for themselves. And that's what you do, and that's what Black Enterprise do.
And we have a good time doing. You do it well. Now, let's talk about transferable skills. I mean, you create content. You started off as a writer. I want to hear the moment that you realized that there was something there. But that's something everybody thinks they can do now. I mean, obviously the magazine game has changed, content game has changed. It's just moved to different platforms. But when you went and trained to, or however you trained to be a journalist, tradition was, many years ago, you make a story, you get it ready to put out, you put it out in 30, 60, 90 days. It's, it stays in one area. And today, there's no breaking
Right.
news 30 days, 60 days. There's breaking news per second because every single person is putting out content and you are fighting a million different people. Why and how can you or anybody right now, why would you still be in that business, and what is making you, what are the core values that you have that still makes that content something that I'm searching for? Because you've been doing it for a long time, you're keeping the lights on in the house, you're actually doing very, very well in life. What has changed? How did you change? And what is the fundamentals? Because right now, shit, I want to know how to do all the stuff you're doing.
I don't confuse what I do with how I do it. And here's what I mean. Like you said, everything has changed. I started out, if I talk about the real beginning of my career, as a college newspaper editor, when I was an undergrad at Rutgers University. I've forgotten most of what I learned then because it's useless. It's useless to me to know how to lay out a newspaper.
Right. Yeah.
Type and use wax to do a layout on I don't even want to talk about it because it doesn't even make sense in today's context. But my point is, what was a gift for me, though I didn't realize it at the time, is that I did not major in journalism. I did not study journalism formally. My degree is actually in art. My degree is in studio art. I minored in economics. Never thought I'd use it. Of course, I got the Black Enterprise that came in handy. But I was more focused on what the mission was, which is to inform people, and less about how I did it, meaning newspapers versus magazines versus radio versus print. And so as a result, as technology changed our business as a media company, it was easy for me to change with it because I don't care whether I deliver the information as print on paper or video on a website, as long as the information gets delivered. And so the ability to adapt your skill set to different modes of delivery is what's kept me relevant now, almost 40 years into my career. It is what's kept Black Enterprise in business, because if Black Enterprise had said, all we do is print on paper, that's how we distribute information. And the rest of the world is saying, I don't want vinyl records anymore because that's the equivalent of vinyl records. Your information is great. Your music is great. but
Right.
I want it on cassette. I want
Mm-hmm.
it on CD, and now I want it streaming or to my phone or to my car. The Black enterprise is still standing today, and I give all the credit in the world to our founder, Earl Graves, late founder, who passed away in 2020, who didn't understand what was going on, but kind of let us young guys run with it. And of course, our current CEO, Butch Graves, who had to have the courage to make the painful transition. It took us a decade to do it, for being primarily a print media company to what we are now, which is a digital media events company. But you had to be willing to say, our mission hasn't changed. What we do hasn't changed, but how we do it has changed. And people become obsolete when they become, and businesses as well, as you know, become obsolete when they become too invested in, this is how we do this. We don't do it this way. We do it that way. And then
And I want people to I want people, because some people listen, like there's a bunch of people right now whose eyes are glossed over, and they're like, yeah, he's talking about magazine, but they don't realize, and this is the difference I find in successful people and non-successful people. Successful people will stop and listen to anybody because of, if you've been in this business
36
for,
years at
what have you
Black
been, 30
Enterprise,
years,
40 years.
25? I'm not sure. How many years have you been in this business? All right. If you've been in there 26 years and you still have a magazine that has gone through all ups and downs of flourishing, and you're saying this information, there must be something there that I can apply. And if I was somebody, the ignorant people, the people who, watch life happen,
Right.
would listen to you go, oh, you're talking about a magazine, but you're not. Because if black entrepreneurs, let's say, let's use the New York Times. If somebody happened not to know the very legendary book that you are part of, if they thought the New York Times, I don't even know if they sell newspapers anymore, right?
Yes.
However, they're doing really well, right? So whether they are stamping, whether a book comes out and it's of value because they're saying to you, our content is to judge the best content. Whether you're getting your stuff on your device on breaking stories, whether you're the person who still likes the old newspaper and you want to lay it all out, whether you're doing a New York Times content series or, a Black Enterprise content series, you're taking the information and putting it in various ways. Now, who can learn from that? Well, it's a person right now who's saying, you know, um, I have a company named FUBU and we sell shirts.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We sell a lifestyle, right? We don't sell shirts, right? Because if FUBU wanted to do something on brand in a different category and sell healthy frozen soul food, because we know that African Americans and or soul food have a higher concentration of salt. We do not want people to enjoy our amazing cultural food that comes from an African American based clothing company, but we don't want you to die. So we want to put, maybe it's vegan, it's plant based. Excuse me, not as much salt content in it, but yet the flavor of whatever it is, that's still part of the brand that can expand, and it's on brand, even though it's not shirts. It cares. It's something that's based
And it's
in an
authentic to the
African
FUBU
American
mission.
founded
And
company,
people get lost. They forget, both
and
individuals
it's
and
authentic.
companies, and we've seen it with huge companies. They forget their mission. That it's not how you do it. It's the mission that you're serving. We've seen the example.
Look at Kodak. I mean, Kodak was founded, I think Eastman Kodak was 1880, 1890. Now, imagine, and they had the first actual digital platform out there, but they kept saying, you need to come to Kodak for the digital platform instead of absorbing an Instagram, absorbing a Shutterfly, and saying, you know what, if Instagram is a very visual platform and they can make filters, Kodak filters and everything else, well, why don't you look at, why don't we absorb it? Because Instagram will be Instagram powered by Kodak.
Allow people to create visual content. That's what it is.
What do you tell people right now who's like, when will I ever stop getting doubted? All these home runs I have, and every time I have a new damn home run ready to rock, it feels like I gotta convince people even more
Right.
because
The
they
lesson
go,
I took
nah,
away
you
from it,
had your
you know,
success
was
already.
the way Reggie Lewis said, never talk a deal till it's done. For me to be a good journalist, and since then, again, I'm a great journalist. I went on to become a great editor. I ran Black Enterprise for 13 years. We won all kinds of awards. But the lesson I got from that moment was, he said, never talk a deal till it's done. I always say, never end someone's story before it's done. You know, us journalists can have a lot of arrogance. Like, we'll cover something and like, yeah, you're done. Okay, cool. But my
Of
lesson as a
course.
young journalist, like, don't be so arrogant to think
Yeah, let's
that you
move
know
on.
how their story is going to end. That you need to be open, not just, especially for Black people, not just for Black people, but especially because we tend to be counted out, especially because we tend to be underestimated and dismissed. It became my personal commitment to say, no matter what a person does, I'm going to assume that they can do more, especially, you know, listen, white guys don't get counted out by the time they're 30 the way we do. You know what I'm saying? Why would I assume Reggie Lewis, I think, was in his early 40s. Why would anybody assume that was the end when he was that early in his career? Why would anybody assume?
Well, yeah, because honestly, most people only start succeeding after
Yes,
they're
the
in their
assumption
40s
is
because
that
of
you do
all
your
the
best
bumps
work,
and what they've
studies prove
learned.
this is not just anecdotal. We do our best work as human beings after the age of 50. We've learned from all the mistakes we've made early in our. We built relationships over the time. We got skill sets. We got resources. So if you look at most of the multimillionaires and billionaires, they made their first million somewhere in their late 40s, and they got into multimillionaire, billionaire after age 50. So
Yeah, I think Warren Buffett didn't even start making,
yes, and
he didn't make his
that's the
first
rule. That's
million
not the
until 50
aberration.
something
So
years
we
old.
do ourselves, especially as Black men, a disservice, and this is the other kind of negative side of focusing on sports and entertainment. Sports entertainment, by its very nature, if you haven't really made it by the time you're 25, you're probably not going to make it. So it is.
Yeah, because they peak at 18, 20, 22. They have a difference than most of us, and that's why a lot of people, and they're not, but a lot of people call them, oh, dumb jocks. No, they peaked
Right.
earlier, and tell me how many mistakes you made at 28 years old with, if you had
Dude, I could
30,
have ran
40, 50 million in the bank at 28 years old. And and by the way, you were the most brilliant person in the world when it came to running plays, nutrition for your body, fighting people, I don't know, slalom where you are practicing 4 years to win over 1 millisecond of the best people on the planet. So there's no lack of discipline in these people. They just
They
didn't
had a
happen
lot
to
more
learn
risk in their
like we
learning
did
and a
on
lot less
another,
margin for error.
track,
I didn't know how to manage $3,500 when I was 25 years old, much less, So, but if I messed up, it's only $3,500. It's not
Me
35
neither.
million. So, but so again, it's being able to send that message when we're talking about success over time, wealth building over time, business building over time. The reason why we need to showcase and tell one another, yes, even if you're successful when you're 25 or 30, that's not all you can do and be, and that's not all you should be doing and being. And again, the big lesson for me was, as a journalist, and it crossed over to every aspect of my life, because I'm big into mentorship, is don't count people out, whether they succeeded early or they had a big failure early. Success and excellence is achieved over time. And Reginald Lewis, that experience, that moment, set my whole mindset as a journalist and an entrepreneur and a professional. And it helped me break other stories. It helped me to be a better leader, both in media and out of media. And I can absolutely say, again, I got promoted 6 months after I got to Black Enterprise. I know that breaking that story was a big part of it. I was editor-in-chief of Black Enterprise. By the time I was 35, I ran it for 13 years. I was the first editor-in-chief of blackenterprise.com. I was the first chief content officer. I can trace all the way back to that Reggie Lewis story and breaking that story. And remember, Daymond, as I said, I did not study journalism in college. I did not take one journalism course. I don't have a Columbia J School degree. I don't have, I had a really good education at Rutgers University, but on paper, I shouldn't be doing what I do now. I should, and I'm a big believer in that you look for talent and you don't, having credentials is good, having the right degrees is good. I'm not dismissing that. But if you stop there, you will miss a lot of great stories and you will underestimate a lot of people.
Let me correct something I said here. I want to make sure I said it correctly. I always want to check it out. Warren Buffett's first billion was when he was 56. That means
Right.
first billion. And obviously, we know that he's given it all away and made it all twice as quick. But I would assume that he was still, probably, in the
Right.
40s. He probably didn't have much. 30 definitely didn't have much. I got two other questions, and I think that everybody can learn from these two because that was a very special moment in your life. I think that it really fueled you, but you learned a lesson that we just shared. People will always say, "Oh, that was a great success. You're not going to do it again," kind of. But what would you for people who write now, and all of us write, and there's fundamental rules, just like we know in speaking, right? Tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them, various other things, right? What are the core fundamentals you think people should think about when they're writing either to a friend on social media, opening a letter? I touched on something the other day that I realized a negotiation of mine was taking several months, and I realized that as social media and all the technology, even though we're closer to each other, we're further apart because we're hiding behind screens and emails. And I realized that in my 20s, I used to write letters that used to say something to the effect of, "Here is what I'm trying to accomplish." And whatever I was trying to accomplish, I was talking to Alfred Edmonds, I would say, "I know you're this, this, and this, and I believe that, and I know that you want to do this, and I want to help you as much as I can with what I can do." It was always about you or what I'm trying to accomplish. And then I go into what I'm trying to accomplish, and then I finally say, "And if we can't accomplish this, thank you for your time. Maybe we'll do something later. I really appreciate that, 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 that." And so I sent an email really quick to my lawyers, and they sent it to their lawyer, other lawyers. And you know what? The deal that took me months to try to negotiate was done in 2 hours because everybody's on the same page of what I'm trying to accomplish. What are the fundamentals, if you can tell us, of really writing compelling content, whether you're writing it to,
For me,
whatever,
and
one
again,
person or 1 million people?
Let me say this. It took me a while to really become a really good writer because I wasn't formally trained. I figured that I always had the talent for writing, but the fundamental structuring of writing, I frankly didn't really get till I got to Black Enterprise, thanks to my mentor, Cheryl Here Tucker, who's a legend in the magazine business, who started telling you, here's how you organize your thoughts. I always say, first of all, you want to write with the end in mind. What is the ultimate message you're trying to get through? When you have to boil it down to one sentence, what is it actually you're trying to say?
Boil it down to one. God damn it! I wish people would know that when it just comes to talking. What are you trying to say?
One of the things I will, when everything is going on with Twitter, and obviously there's lots of changes even being announced now. The thing I appreciated about Twitter is it made me a better writer. When you got to get your thoughts down into 140 characters, guess what? You got to get rid of the bullshit and get to what you're trying to say.
So is that a takeaway right there? Like, start with that final sentence on where you're going to land.
Writers and my staff. Where's the destination? Where are you taking them? If you're
okay. In directing, they say, what is the motivation for the light? Right? You'll see something, you light on somebody. Well, is that light coming through a broken window? Is it coming through somebody shining a flashlight on you? Is it a TV in the background? Is it, it's what is the motivation for the light? So you're saying I finished with the last one or two sentences, and boom, 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 boom.
Never made deadlines. She did not make deadlines because she was not time conscious. She didn't know when the story ended. She kept writing and writing and writing and writing. And the way I fixed it, I was like, where do you want people to go? If the destination is LA, why are you in Chicago? Why are you taking them through Chicago, down to Atlanta to get to LA? Once you get your destination, then it becomes easier to write because you start to say, well, I don't really need to put this in there to get them there. I only need that to get. So this idea of destination focused writing, destination focused messaging, like you said with speaking, you know very again you're a world renowned global public speaker. You know what you really want them to leave with when you walk in the door. If you don't, you're going to get on that stage and talk a lot,
Yes.
and people are going to leave
Yes.
scratching their heads. So that's the most important lesson I had to learn at the very beginning. What do you want them to know? What do you want them to know?
I I love it. I love it. I love it. And, it's even about communication because when Clubhouse is doing really well, we're all in the pandemic, I realized the best way to get people to ask the proper question
Yes.
was to say, my question is. Because what usually happens, people, hey, so I want to, no. Open up, your turn. Start off with, my question is. So to elaborate on what you're saying, because this is one of those moments, I love that moment that I am going to utilize what you just said about, having that final question. Where am I trying to land that? I think there's two other things of, what is your question? And something else you said in there that's critical. Whether you're a journalist or whether you're communicating with somebody, don't finish anybody else's story or sentence. You're assuming,
Great
and that's not
journalists,
your
great
right to
communicators in
assume.
general are good listeners, not good talkers. The best people at communicating are the ones who actually talk the least and listen the most, and who are able to spend. It's a part of the arrogance of journalism. It's also in law. There's a couple other professions where we go by what we think we already know. And one of the hardest things to do, especially the more knowledge you get, is not to get so in love with your own knowledge that you think you know already. You think, look at the arrogance of the average sports journalist who didn't even make their freshman basketball team, but will critique why, Stephon Curry didn't make that last shot, and this is what they should have done. And you've seen it again, even from Black enterprise journalists, but business journalists in general, who are trying. You've been interviewed by journalists who have never ever had to be payroll, never launched a business, never had to deal with it, never had a sleepless night running a business, who will come and tell you what you should have done. And when I was coaching my editor, I said, listen, have some respect. You have never done what they do. Whether they're successful or whether they fail, don't assume you know. Let them tell you the story. Yes, back it up with your own research, your own analysis, but don't get so arrogant that you think you already know. The best communicators don't walk in thinking they have all the answers. So you're right. It's a great point. It's like, you don't know. Don't try to finish the story before it's done. Be open.
Everybody, all you got to do is remember when you was a teenager and you walk in the house and your mom will be like, so,
Right?
everything okay? Or your wife, hey, ooh, yeah, where you been? And they know already. Or go check out First 48 when they bring Wendy's into the room or Chick-fil-A into the room and those cops be like, we ain't going to talk about much. Have some Chick-fil-A. Boy, you know you doing 40 years in jail.
Leave air
because they listen.
The other person and if you're doing all the talking, if you're making all the assumptions, the person doesn't have any air. So if you really want to, here's the other thing about whether it's being a journalist, being an entrepreneur, for you as an investor, you got to leave room for them to give you the information that you need.
If you are selling, they're telling you exactly what they want. But if you're not asking the right questions and if you're not listening twice as much as they're talking, you're never going to be able to get out. You got to close the deal.
You do this very well when I watch your Shark Tank.
And
you're good at listening for what's not being said. Like, you know what they want when they walk in. But you also can feel what they're avoiding that you know you need to know the answer to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good listening. Like, what aren't they telling you?
Exactly, because everybody's going to tell you that you know they can do everything great. They're not going to come in, or someone will come in and tell you anything else. I got one last one, and thank you for the time and all. And I've definitely learned some communication things. You reinforced some stuff as well as showed me some new stuff. Let's talk about the age you decided to go into competing for natural fitness. And the reason why I want to say that is because, as I said, as we all get older, there are things that we can and we cannot do. And if you were just pumping yourself filled with drugs, well, then it would be like, oh, that's why, you look like that. And I see you, and you often have a very, your shirts cover your body well, so you don't look, like jailhouse. You look great. But what are the things that, as the older people, or even the younger people, sir, what are the things you feel are the fundamentals to concentrate on for
Right.
fitness of
And that's the key,
muscle
without hurting
without
yourself, because
hurting yourself? Yeah. Nutrition, muscle, I heard six packs are made in the kitchen for sure, but I want to be active, but I don't want to hurt myself and all of a sudden spend 3 months in the gym
I'm
and
going to go back to
three
something you said
years
earlier about you
limping.
deciding what your
What do I do?
destination is. My fitness journey started when I was in my early 30s. I was into weight training since I was in high school, but my fitness journey started in my early 30s. My motivation was, at that
Mhm.
time, I had two young daughters and my son was an infant. And I looked up and I asked myself, do I want to be able to play basketball in the driveway with this boy when he's 17? And if I do, what kind of condition? That's what the starting point was. Eventually, it became, what's going to be my final destination? We talked about where you're trying to go.
Mhm.
Where I'm trying to go is a healthy 104. That's the number in my head. A healthy, active 104. So it began with weight training
Mhm.
because I like weight training.
Mhm.
Then I learned to eat better. I chose natural bodybuilding, which means it's drug tested, no steroids, none of that stuff. So I accepted. I'm not going to be the 280-pound this dude. I'm going to be a really fit this dude. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
my journey was about what's the best way to eat, what's the best way to maintain muscle, because maintaining muscle is key, especially as you get older. Once you get past the age of 35, 40, muscle decline is going to happen naturally unless you work against it. But if you maintain the muscle,
Mhm.
it protects you almost from everything else in terms of the strength of your immune system. People don't know most of the things that lead to elderly health issues is falling. And if you have more muscle, you're less likely to fall. And when you do fall, you're less likely to break something and impair your mobility, which creates all kinds of other cascading health effects. So Damon, my simple thing is, I want to maintain my body and also my mind and my emotions the way somebody would maintain their car if they cared about their car. And I'm saying there's nothing that I can't
What
do at
is a
age
simple?
53
Go
that I
ahead.
couldn't do
Sorry.
when I was 33.
What is a simple schedule for somebody who doesn't want to compete, but what is a simple schedule, daily or weekly? And I'll get into it really a quick second, and I'll tell you something a doctor told me. I ripped one rotator cuff
Mm-hmm.
when I was snowboarding. I fell down and it ripped, right? And then I was like, hey, I'm not going to snowboard anymore, right? Then I was diving in Mexico, not a crazy cliff, but like 20 feet, and I went down and it was shallow. I shouldn't have been diving head first. I go and the sand comes up on me quicker, so I push myself up, as I'm in a forward dive, and I rip my other cuff. I'm like, I'm not diving. I go to the doctor. He goes, Damon, it wasn't the dive, it wasn't the fall. Let me tell you something. He said, you see rotator cuff injuries on women? I said, not often. He said, I'll tell you why. Because you were probably the cool kid in school, Damon, who wore that heavy ass book bag on one arm. And I don't play golf. And he said, and also the guys who have the big clubs on one arm. He said, well, when you're doing that on one arm, it's
Mm-hmm.
slowly ripping at your rotator cuff. You're 15, you're 25, it's ripping at it. Then you sleep at night on it, and it's 30 to 40 pounds on it, and then all of a sudden, it's gonna pop
Yeah.
for no reason because you've ripped away at it for years. Now, I've learned that now. It took me years to get myself back. But I say that to say that prior to that, what I used to do was I used to do 100, 150 push-ups a day because what I did as I woke up, I knocked out 20, and then throughout the day, I knocked out more. And even if I didn't get to hit the gym heavy, I got that in, and that kept my adrenaline running.
Yes.
It kept my posture that's horrible. It kept me upright. And it was something I can do anywhere and everywhere, no matter how much I'm traveling. add that to now, making sure that I oxidize my body as much as possible with green drinks, and I do red lights, and I do all kind of stuff for inflammation. But what is the everyday person right now? Some
No,
basics that Alfred can say,
absolutely.
you know
That's how
what,
it was with me. What
just
I
do
do now is not
this.
what I
It'll
was doing when I
start you on the
started.
right track.
First of all, just make up your mind. You're going to do some weight bearing exercises. Push-ups is fine. Squats and push-ups is fine. Say you're going to do it 5 days a week. The reason why I tell people 5 days a week, because if you're a busy professional, you know you're going to miss one or two. If you shoot for 5, you'll get 3. But say you're going to do some kind of strength, weight bearing, muscle building.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be weight.
And squats can be air squats,
body weight
right?
to
No weight.
And say, no matter what, if I have to do it at home, I can do it in my office, whatever it is. Because it's about consistency. The best exercise is the one you're going to do. So if you start out and you say, this is what I'm going to do. 5 days a week, I'm going to do this thing. Then the second thing is drink a lot of water. Just drink water. Try to shoot for a gallon a day. 8 ounce glasses a day. Like you said, every day you're not going to get there, but most days you'll get there once you get into the habit.
People, you know what? I talked to the 5 Hour Energy guy, and the guy who obviously makes things that will probably kill you. And he's actually a great guy. You know what? He's spending most of his money. He does about $1 billion change a year. He's spending most of his money on new technology for clean water. And he said because almost all the ailments we have is either the lack of water or dirty water. Oh, whether it is, right? Because it's all the fertilizer running into our systems and whatever. But if you aren't drinking, because your body's made of water, and if you drank more water, it would flush things through your body, losing weight. It fills you up so you don't want to eat as much, and it cleans your entire system.
Hydrated. I am never thirsty. If you get to a point where you're thirsty, you are in fact dehydrated. And so you don't drink when you're thirsty, you just drink all the time, so you're never thirsty. And it's not about, because us bodybuilders are known for carrying the gallon around with us at the gym. That's extreme. You just say, well, I wake up, I keep a glass of water by my bedside. When I wake up in the morning, I drink a glass. You just kind of do.
Well, but there's a big ass thing that you can buy, and it says kind of like it puts you on pace. I remember I bought the bottle to break my habits, and I started drinking it. I told you for the first 2 days, I don't want to give you too much information, but I felt like I was going to pop. And then when it finally all settled in, I went to the bathroom several times, and I purged myself, and then I was happy as ever. I felt like the lightest person in the world, and I got used to it.
Maybe for a few days you will, but eventually your body says, "Oh, you're going to give me the water that I need? Okay, I'm good."
Yeah, and then you bought it up.
But like I said, whether you do the big bottle, my girlfriend does the big bottle. That's nothing wrong with that. What worked for me was glass of water when I wake up, glass of water with every meal, glass of water before I went to bed. I was going to get at least 5 glasses that way anyway. Then it was about squeezing in the other 3. Do what works for you. That's why when people say, what's the right way to do it? I'm like, there's no right way. It's what you're willing to do that works for you and that you don't feel as a chore. So if you do that, and I think the 10,000 steps a day, though it doesn't always have to be 10,000, 5 to 10,000 a day is a good goal. If you can do those 3 things, and my other one that I've only learned to respect in the last 10 years, making sure you get at least 7 hours of sleep a day. You do those 4 things, those habits will lead to other habits, And I think what intimidates people, again, there are people who follow me on social media and they see the bodybuilding shots and they think they have to do what I'm doing now. And I always have to say to them, this is not where I started. Start with the easiest, most consistent thing you can do, but just do it. And what will happen is you make progress, you'll pick up other things, you'll learn more. And next thing you know, you might be competing in a bodybuilding show or something like that. But it's not about competing in the shows for me. That's just that's like a sport that I have fun with. It's like gambling or golf for me. It's the daily lifestyle choices I want to make so that I can have a robust, productive business life, professional life, social life. I want to have fun in my 60s and 70s and forward, not just kind of be just making it through in these years.
Well, Al, every time I talk to you, I learn a lot. I'm going to recap kind of the things you said, but man,
All
Alfred
platforms,
Edmond,
Alfred
where can
Edmond
we find
Jr.,
you on
ALFRED,
social media?
JMONDJR. I'm very, my kids call me a social media OG. I'm particularly active on Instagram and LinkedIn, but I'm on Twitter and Facebook as well. But everywhere I'm the same.
All right, so I want to sum up for people what only a couple of topics that we have really touched on and we learned from today is that first of all, whatever you're doing, there is no shortage of what you're doing, and you don't put yourself in a box. You find other platforms, you find other ways to deliver it. If the fundamentals are there, then you can find other ways to go about it. Skills in learning how to communicate is first of all when you are talking about writing and various other things, write that destination where you're going to land. You listen twice as much as you speak, and never to
Right.
assume finish somebody's life story or sentence. Don't do either one of those. Never assume. Right. You said four things that are critical for health. I'm going to add one more to it that I think I've actually heard from you too. So of course, hydrate yourself, sleep, do an activity that you can do no matter what kind of type of resistance, whatever you can do. Burn calories from walking, and we talked about nutrition. But one thing you said that was really, if you just think about nutrition, is you said, I believe, never drink your calories. I think that's what you said. I'm not sure if it was you, because people don't realize. Listen, I am number one to tell somebody to put anything down, but if I have a Sprite that I can knock out in literally 1 minute, or a big ass juicy slice of cake that's going to satisfy me for half the day, a day, it takes me a while. Don't drink your calories. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, if you're going to do wrong right.
You're so right.
And do the
I don't
cake if
drink
you have to. You
sodas.
know what I
I don't
mean?
drink any
That's
sweetened
a
drinks.
simple
Every
point. You
once
know
in
what
a
I
while,
mean?
I have a ginger beer if it's pure ginger, like if it's the real ginger beer. But you're right. We did have that conversation. I was like, if I want something sweet, I'll get a piece of cake because I like chocolate cake. I'll have a piece of chocolate. I love chocolate. But you're right. It's better to eat it than to drink it, because drinking it, you're literally mainlining it into your bloodstream.
And when I did it, you know what? I dropped 40 pounds when I stopped
Yeah.
just
People
drinking
underestimate.
liquor, because I was doing vodkas and tonics, and and I was putting in 2,000, 1,500 to 2,000 calories unneeded in my
Right.
body, when I could have just ate some
A big
bullshit
part,
and only put 400 calories in my body,
a big part of
and
success in
still
life,
would have felt
it's not
bad,
just
but
with health
a
and
good bad.
nutrition and all life. And I've only been learning this in the post age 45. Put it this way, I've learned to really think, what do I really want, versus what it would be nice to have. I say no to a lot of nice to haves to get what I really, really, and I am so much happier now at this stage in my life.
You really want.
I do what I really want to do, and I understand that means there's some other things that would be nice to do, but it's okay. And then, that's like you said, what you really want, if you're going to get extra 2,000 calories, is you don't want it from, vodka. That'd be nice to have. At least me, I'd rather have a piece of chocolate cake that I really, really want.
Yeah.
But it benefits you, so that even if you do make quote unquote
bad
choices, and I try not to assign those type of moral judgments to choices, because that can create a guilt cycle that's not good for us either. But it's worth it to you. And so many people lose time, lose money, lose relationships, because they're accepting the nice to have relationships, and they're sacrificing the relationships that are really valuable to them. So it applies to everything. I say no to a lot of stuff, so I can say yes to everything I really want.
Powerful stuff, man. Thank you so much, man. And I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you for spending that moment with me and everybody else. And I know that a lot of people are going to have very special moments off of our conversation. I appreciate you, Alfred.
Likewise.
And I'll be following you as always and getting inspired every day, man. Thank you. Thanks for watching. I wish you love and power in your life. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Check you later.